For the sake of a sachet, the young miss of the Pei family was pushed into the icy lake by Pei Qing'an. While she lay unconscious with a fever, my husband forced me to sign a confession, claiming she had slipped and fallen on her own, all because the culprit was about to enter the Imperial Academy. The entire household expected me to cry, make a scene, and accept my fate. Yet, I chose to smile and withdraw the lawsuit, because from that moment on, I was no longer the matriarch of the Pei family. I was going to be the Pei family's greatest creditor. They thought they had secured a bright future, unaware that I was going to take everything from the second branch. And all of this began with that sachet 3 days ago.
Brother Chang'an, give it back to me. Mother gave this to me.
If you want it, go fetch it yourself.
The young miss has fallen into the water. Someone, help. Help.
The cold has entered her lungs. If her fever doesn't break tonight, I fear it will cause permanent damage to her health.
Use the best medicine. Money is no object.
Mother, Brother Chang'an pushed me.
Has the complaint been delivered to the capital prefecture? It has already been delivered.
Jiang Zhaoyue, how dare you sue Chang'an? Chang'an is about to take the Imperial Academy entrance exam. By suing him at a time like this, are you trying to ruin him?
He pushed Ning'er into the icy depths. Was I wrong to sue him?
Ning'er has already been saved.
So, because Ning'er didn't die, Chang'an did nothing wrong?
Withdraw the lawsuit tomorrow and sign this confession.
You want me to say Ning'er fell in on her own?
It is merely a single sentence, yet it can secure Chang'an's future for the rest of his life.
Then what about Ning'er's life?
She only caught a bit of a chill. Do not blow this matter out of proportion.
Father.
Ning'er is calling for you.
Once you agree to withdraw the lawsuit, I will go see her.
She almost died, and you are still using him to threaten me?
I am doing this for the sake of the entire Pei family.
If you do not withdraw the complaint, I will kneel here until I die. Shinji, Chang'an is the only bloodline left by your elder brother. You cannot ignore him.
Do not worry, sister-in-law. I will not let anything happen to Chang'an.
Your son pushed Ning'er into the water, yet you have not offered a single apology.
Chang'an is young and ignorant, and Ning'er is already safe and sound.
In your eyes, not being dead is called safe and sound?
Mother, please stand up for Chang'an.
Lady Jiang, go to the Jingzhou prefecture immediately to withdraw the complaint.
Mother, you haven't even looked at Ning'er's injuries, yet you want me to withdraw the complaint.
A little girl catching a cold. How can that be more important than the future of the eldest grandson of the Pei family?
We are all family. Why make a scene at the government office?
Since you want to talk about family, then let's go to the main hall and make things clear in front of everyone.
Everyone to the main hall.
Did you push Ning'er into the water?
She couldn't stand steady herself.
2 old maids by the lake saw it. How dare you still lie?
Even if I pushed her, isn't she still alive?
Chang'an, do not speak nonsense.
This is the person you are desperately trying to protect.
Chang'an is still young. He speaks without thinking.
He is 17, and you call him young? Ning'er is 7 and almost drowned. Yet she is expected to be understanding for his sake.
Lady Jiang, must you force the eldest grandson of the Pei family to his death?
If it were Chang'an who fell into the water today, would you also advise Lulaning to be generous?
Sister-in-law, I beg you to give Chang'an a way out. If Chang'an loses his eligibility for the recommended exam, I will go to the grave to accompany him.
Sister-in-law has already begged you. What more do you want?
You eat the Pei family's food and live in the Pei family's house. You should also do your part for the Pei family.
I will ask you one more time. Do you absolutely insist that I withdraw the complaint?
You must withdraw it. Fine.
I will withdraw it.
If you had been this sensible earlier, why must we make such a scene?
I can withdraw the complaint, but I have 2 conditions.
What else do you want?
First, starting from today, if the Pei family uses my dowry again, a promissory note must be written.
Husband and wife are one. To spend your money, we still have to write a promissory note?
Since we are one, and my husband signs on behalf of the Pei family, what is there to be afraid of?
A mere amount of money. Would my Pei family ever default on your debt? Then write it. What is the second condition?
Hand over the keys to the accounting room and the storehouse of the second branch to me.
The accounting room has always been looked after by Mother and me. How can it suddenly be handed over to you?
I have to use my dowry to fill the Pei family's deficit, yet I cannot look at the Pei family's accounts?
Give her the keys.
But in the accounting room, there are still...
Say no more. These are all minor matters.
Please have the accountant come in to draw up the agreement.
How should the agreement be written?
Clearly state that the dowry of Lady Jiang used by the second branch shall all be considered loans. For every sum withdrawn, Pei Shinji must personally sign and acknowledge it. Also, the accounting room and storehouse shall be taken over by me, witnessed together by the clan elders.
As long as you withdraw the complaint tomorrow, I will sign it right now.
Please sign and seal it, husband.
The agreement is made. Lady Jiang should also keep her promise.
First thing tomorrow morning, I will go to the capital prefecture court.
Take it.
Madam, do you really want to withdraw the complaint? Withdraw it, but keep copies of the original complaint, the evidence, and the witness list. Keep copies of all of them. What do you need these for? They want to use Qing'an's future in exchange for Ninger suffering injustice. Then I will use this agreement to make the Pei family return everything they owe us. There is a problem with the accounts. The Pei family isn't just short on silver. They have long been insolvent. We start calculating the first debt now. How much property does the second branch have left now?
1 ancestral residence, 2 agricultural estates, and 6 shops. And since the second master holds office in the Hanlin Academy, outsiders all say our Pei family has a wealthy estate.
How much cash is left in the accounting room? 126 taels. A Pei family this large only has 126 taels left. First, call in the bailiffs of the 2 agricultural estates. How much grain should the 2 estates harvest in a year?
In a normal year, they can harvest 10,000 dough.
How much did they harvest over the past 3 years?
There was a severe drought the year before last, a pest infestation last year, and a flood this year. The 2 estates have had no income for 3 consecutive years.
No income? How did the estates support their people?
They relied on Madam's dowry to subsidize them.
The agricultural estates have been audited. Call in the managers of the 6 shops. Why are only 3 of the 6 shops making a profit?
The other 3 have always been managed by the eldest madam.
How much merchandise did she take?
Over the past 3 years, the eldest madam took merchandise from the pharmacy, the silk shop, and the cosmetics shop, worth 8,000 taels.
Was the silver settled? Go invite sister-in-law and tell her that the account of 8,000 taels must be made clear today.
Sister-in-law, these are our own family shops. Why must you audit them so strictly?
3 shops were depleted by you. Where did the 8,000 taels of silver go?
Qing'an's studies, his apprenticeship, and his socializing with nobles. Which of these doesn't require silver?
Your son spends money, so why take it from my shops?
You are Qing'an's second aunt. Isn't it only right for you to help him?
Madam, young Master Chang'an's creditors are blocking the manor gates, and they are currently clamoring for silver.
Bring them in.
It's only a debt of a few taels. How dare you make a scene at the Pei residence?
1,200 taels for wine, 2,600 taels for gambling debts, and 600 taels still owed for purchasing horses.
A total of 4,600 taels. How are you going to pay it back?
My uncle said that any money I owe outside, he would handle it for me.
Go and ask the second master if he really intends to pay his nephew's gambling debts.
Within 3 days, the Pei family will definitely repay the money. You may leave for now.
Lord Pei, you promised this yourself.
I am a man of my word.
Where is the 4,400 taels coming from?
We will take it from your dowry first.
What about the Pei family's estates, shops, and your official salary?
Husband and wife are one. Why must you draw such a clear line?
Madam, as for the sellable items in the estate, the second master has pawned almost all of them.
An antique jade vase from the previous dynasty for 800 taels, a red sandalwood screen for 1,000 taels, the Duan inkstone left by the old marquis, and 22 other antiques. They were pawned for a total of 6,400 taels. And who was that money spent on?
Chengyan needs to enter the Imperial Academy. I used it to pull some strings for him.
Once I enter the Imperial Academy, I will naturally earn all this money back.
Since it was spent on you, this 6,400 taels will be recorded under your name, number 190.
Why should it be charged to my account?
Qing'an has not even entered society yet. How could he afford to pay back so much money?
Just because he can't pay it back, he can spend my dowry as he pleases?
Zhaoyue, Chengyan is my biological nephew. Don't be so petty.
Second master, the money for the old madam's medicine this month and the funds for next month's birthday banquet need to be disbursed. It's 5,300 taels in total, 800 taels for medicine and 3,000 taels for the birthday banquet and 1,500 taels for social gifts. Where did the money for medicine and birthday banquets come from in previous years?
It was also paid from Madam's dowry.
For how many years?
5 years.
The deficits of the estates and shops, Qing'an's gambling debts, the pawned antiques, and the old madam's expenses, adding them all up.
Over the past 5 years, the second branch has taken from Madam's dowry a total of 29,870 taels.
Plus the 130 taels to be drawn today. It is exactly 30,000 taels.
How could there be so much?
Husband, how do you plan to settle this 30,000 taels?
Husband and wife are one. How can spending your money be considered a debt?
Husband, you promised me yesterday with your own mouth that if the Pei family uses my dowry again, a promissory note must be signed.
That was starting from yesterday.
Fine. I will let the previous 30,000 taels slide for now, but starting from today, the deficits of the estates, the debts of the shops, Qing'an's debts, and the old madam's expenses must all be signed and acknowledged transaction by transaction.
I will not sign.
Uncle, I still need 5,000 taels to secure my recommendation exam.
I can provide this 5,000 taels.
Is second and serious?
As long as my husband signs for all of today's expenses as a loan.
You are forcing my hand.
If my husband is unwilling to sign, then I will not lend it.
Shinji, it is just a promissory note. Securing Qing'an's recommendation exam is what matters most.
Bring the ledger.
Maintenance costs for the second branch's estates, 3,200 taels. Deficits for 3 shops, 8,000 taels. Young Master Chang'an. Drinking debts, gambling debts, horse purchases, and recommendation exam expenses. A total of 11,000 taels.
The 5,000 taels in banknotes is still in my hand.
It has already been signed. Give the banknotes to Chang'an.
Thank you, second and.
Since sister-in-law is willing to look out for Qing'an, I can rest easy.
Zhaoyue, you finally know how to be the mistress of the Pei family.
Only with clear accounts can things last. Madam, you clearly know they can't pay it back. Why do you keep lending to them? Before, they spent my money without having to pay it back. Starting today, every tael they spend is another tael they owe me. They think you are helping the Pei family, but you are actually waiting for them to be unable to pay their debts. The 2 estates have no harvest. The 3 shops are in deficit, and there are only 126 taels left in the estate. If they keep spending like this, the Pei family won't last 3 months.
Madam, the audit is not finished yet.
What else is there?
The second branch's biggest deficit is in a granary outside the city. The official deed of that granary has your name on it, madam. But the granary is missing a full 8,000 tons of official grain. Madam, the granary outside the city is missing 8,000 tons of official grain.
Who moved the grain?
The eldest madam, Lu Lanin. But the granary deed has your name on it. If the Ministry of Revenue investigate, you will be the first one arrested.
Madam, what should we do? Did he do it? We will know once we go to the granary. Prepare the carriage. We are leaving the estate now.
Madam, why did you come so suddenly?
Am I not allowed to come?
An inventory is being taken inside. It's not convenient to open the doors.
If you don't open them, I will have my men break them down.
Open the doors quickly. Madam, please do not make a scene after you go in.
In such a large granary, how is this all that's left? There should be 12,000 dan on the books. How much is left now?
4,000 dan. Who carted away the remaining 8,000 dan? The eldest madam held the second master's personal order and had us release the grain.
Pei Shinji knew about this too.
The second master's seal is right on the grain loan document.
Bring me the document. Lu Lanin borrowed 8,000 tons of official grain, but the guarantor is listed as me. She used Madam's granary without permission and even dared to stamp the second master's.
The eldest madam said we are all family, so it doesn't matter whose name is on it.
The official grain was not transported back to the Pei Manor, but was sold instead.
It was all sold to the border grain merchants.
How much silver did it sell for?
At that time, it sold for 1 tael per shire, totaling 8,000 taels.
How much will it cost to buy back 8,000 shire now?
The price of grain has gone up. Now it costs 2 taels per shire. It will take 16,000 taels to make up the full amount. Selling the grain only brought in 8,000 taels.
But buying it back requires 16,000 taels. That is a difference of exactly 8,000 taels. How much of the 8,000 taels from the grain sale is left?
Not a single tael is left. It was all taken by the eldest madam.
Take the account books and come back to the Pei Manor with me. We will settle the accounts face-to-face today.
What brings you here?
You borrowed 8,000 shire of official grain and then turned around and sold it to border grain merchants.
Do you admit it? I only took the grain to get by temporarily. It's not like I won't return it. Where are the 8,000 taels from the sale? Qing'an's studies, his apprenticeship, and making connections with influential people all require silver.
You paved the way for your son, yet you expect me to go to prison for you?
Shinji, come in quickly and explain.
I know about this matter.
You knew she borrowed official grain?
Sister-in-law only wanted to make some silver to prepare for Chang'en's future. She had no ill intent.
But my name is on the granary deed. If the Ministry of Revenue finds a deficit, I am the one who will go to prison.
As long as we replace the grain, who would arrest you?
And what if we can't replace it?
Your family are imperial merchants. It's not like you can't produce 16,000 taels.
So you knew about this all along. Yet you kept it from me, waiting for me to use my dowry to fill this hole.
Husband and wife are one. Isn't your money also the Pei family's money? Sister-in-law is a widow with a child. What's wrong with helping her one more time?
Sister-in-law, you wouldn't really watch the Pei family fall into trouble, would you? No, you wouldn't.
I will help you fill this deficit.
Then hurry up and bring out 16,000 taels.
I will first use 4,000 taels to buy back 2,000 dan of grain. As for the remaining 6,000 dan, I will raise the money.
This is what the mistress of the Pei family should do.
But this debt is not mine. I will provide the money for the second branch to replace the grain, but they must sign a reimbursement agreement.
Another agreement to write?
It's very simple. I pay the debt for you, and you repay me in the future. The first clause must state clearly, although the granary is registered under Jiang Zhaoyue's name, it is actually managed and used by the second branch of the Pei family.
Why must we write this clause?
Because you were the ones who touched the grain, not me.
It merely clarifies who has the use of the granary.
Write it down. Now, the second clause, the deficit of official grain and the money to replenish it shall be entirely borne by the second branch.
With so much money, how can the second branch bear it?
If you can't bear it, then don't ask me to replenish it. When the Ministry of Revenue comes to investigate, sister-in-law can go and explain it herself.
Shinji, I cannot go to prison.
It just clarifies the responsibility first. The money can be paid back slowly in the future.
What if we can't pay it back?
That is precisely the third clause. If you cannot pay it back, the properties of the second branch will be used as collateral. 2 manors, 6 shops, and the residence of the second branch. When the second branch is unable to repay the debt, all of them shall be handed over to me to offset the debt.
No way. Those are the assets of the Pei family.
The Pei family's assets cannot be touched, but my dowry can be touched at will?
Zhaoyue is my wife. Even if the properties are transferred to her, they will still remain in the hands of the Pei family.
Since my husband thinks so, then sign it.
The agreement is signed.
What about the money? Buy the grain right now.
The second branch of the Pei family will use their estates, shops, and residence as collateral. If they cannot repay the money advanced by Miss Jiang, the properties will belong to Miss Jiang. Exactly. The deed has already been filed in the official archive. The signers cannot back out.
The second master thought Madam was merely replenishing the grain for him. He has no idea he personally mortgaged the entire second branch to me.
Urgent order from the Ministry of Revenue. In 1 month, there will be a thorough inspection of all official granaries in the capital. Those with insufficient grain will have their granary keepers prosecuted. Those who knew but covered it up will be severely punished with the same charges.
Zhaoyue, the remaining 6,000 tons of grain must be replenished as soon as possible.
I will replenish the grain. But the debt you owe me will only keep growing.
A month later, the Ministry of Revenue is inspecting all official granaries. If there is even 1 dan of grain missing, the granary keeper will be prosecuted. Those who privately sold official grain will be thrown into prison.
If they find out I was the one who sold the grain, I will go to prison.
Not just prison. Pei Chang'en's eligibility for the recommendation exam will also be revoked.
Uncle, you must save me.
Zhaoyue, you will replenish the remaining 6,000 dan of grain.
6,000 dan of grain. At 2 taels per dan, that requires 12,000 taels.
Take it from your dowry.
I already paid the 4,000 taels for the last grain replenishment. Now you want another 12,000 taels. Husband, do you think my dowry is bottomless?
Sister-in-law, you can't just watch me get dragged away.
You were the one who sold the official grain. Why can't I watch?
Shinji, save us, mother and son.
Zhaoyue, consider this me begging you this time.
Who are you begging me to save?
To save sister-in-law, and also to save
Chang'en's future? Or Ninger? Or me?
Now is not the time to bicker over this. Get the money first. We can talk about other things later.
I can provide the money, but starting from now, the second branch must follow my rules. Accountant Zhou, bring all the land deeds, property deeds, and shop deeds of the second branch.
2 estates, 6 shops, and the property deed for the east mansion of the second branch. They are all here.
I only want you to repay the money. If you can repay it, the properties will still be yours. If not, the estates, shops, and mansion will go to me to offset the debt.
But those are the ancestral properties of the Pei family.
The official grain belonged to the imperial court. When you sold it, why weren't you afraid then? If my husband is unwilling, then go raise the 12,000 taels yourself.
Uncle, you can't let her leave. If she doesn't give the money, Mother will go to prison, and I won't be able to participate in the recommendation exam.
Before your elder brother passed away, he entrusted us, mother and son, to you. You promised him that you would protect Xing'an for his entire life.
I can use the properties of the second branch as collateral, as long as we can make up for the official grain. The properties won't really be lost. There is one more condition. What other condition is there?
Pei Qing'an must also sign the contract. I won't sign.
I was the one who sold the grain. What does it have to do with Xing'an?
The 8,000 taels earned from selling the grain, wasn't it all spent on him?
That was for his future.
When earning the money, he was the beneficiary. But when trouble arises, he becomes an unrelated person.
My mother gave me the money voluntarily. Why should I carry the debt?
Because you were already 17, not 3 years old. Child, the wine you drank, the gambling debts you owed, and the gifts for visiting influential officials were all paid for by selling the official grain.
Uncle, you said you would bear everything for me.
I will certainly protect you.
Then sign it. Pei Qing'an will bear the responsibility, and Pei Shinji will act as his guarantor.
He cannot sign this. Xing'an is the only bloodline his father left behind. He cannot carry such a debt.
Then who does sister-in-law want to carry it for him? Do you want me to go to prison for you, or do you want Ning'er to suffer for him again?
Shinji, you must protect Xing'an.
Sign it. I will act as your guarantor. What are you afraid of?
All estates, shops, and the east mansion of the Pei family's second branch shall be registered together as collateral. Jiang Zhaoyue will provide 12,000 taels of silver to make up for the deficit in the granary. Pei Chang'an, as the beneficiary of the granary's operations, shall share the debt with the second branch.
Sign it, quickly.
And your fingerprint. My husband is the head of the second branch, and also Pei Qing'an's guarantor. Please sign and seal it.
Shinji, think about this again.
Zhaoyue has already taken out her entire dowry. She cannot leave the Pei family, much less actually take away the Pei family's properties. Bring out the silver now.
And send the contract to the government office for registration. Accountant Zhou, come with me to the grain merchant to buy grain.
Miss Jiang wants to buy 6,000 dan of grain.
To be loaded onto the carts today, and all delivered to the granary outside the city tomorrow.
Grain prices are still rising.
Buying now is not cost-effective. We must buy, no matter how expensive. A shortage of grain in the granary costs money, but if the Ministry of Revenue finds the deficit, it will cost lives.
Please transfer the grain immediately.
Men, load the carts.
First cart, 500 dan. Record it. 12th cart, 500 dan. All 6,000 dan of grain have been stored in the granary.
Adding the original grain, is it enough to meet the official record of 12,000 dan?
Not a single grain is missing.
Seal the granary and wait for the Ministry of Revenue's inspection.
Official record, 12,000 dan. Open the granary and inspect the grain.
What if we are still short on grain?
Jiang Zhaoyue has already invested her entire dowry. Nothing will go wrong.
12,000 dan of grain. The numbers match. The initial inspection is passed.
My eligibility for the recommended exam is secured.
The second master and the others all think the crisis has passed.
They are also certain that Madam's dowry has been completely spent, and that she can never recover.
They think I am filling the granary. But in fact, I am turning the properties of the second branch, one by one, into my collateral. Where are these letters to be sent? One to the capital prefecture office, one to the Ministry of Revenue, and the other 3 to the 3 creditors of the Pei family.
What is written in the main letter?
It is time to pull in the net on the second branch of the Pei family.
One to the capital prefecture office, one to the Ministry of Revenue, and the other 3 to the creditors.
Tell the 3 creditors that I am willing to buy the Pei family's IOUs with ready silver. Why does Madam want to buy the debts for the Pei family? It is not buying them for the Pei family. It is buying the Pei family's debts into my own hands.
Once the debts are in Madam's hands, the Pei family will have to pay you back in the future.
Have them bring the IOUs to the accounting room tomorrow morning.
Is Miss Jiang truly willing to pay off the debts for the Pei family?
I am not paying them off for them. I am putting up the silver to buy the debts in your hands.
Once we receive the silver, the Pei family will owe you instead.
Will you take the ready silver today, or continue to wait for the Pei family to repay the debt? The 3 of you can choose for yourselves.
I'll sell. We'll sell too.
Draw up the debt transfer agreement.
Boss Chen, 6,000 taels. Shopkeeper's son, 4,800 taels. Shopkeeper Lu, 4,000 taels.
I will acquire them at 80% in ready silver.
It is better than the Pei family not paying back a single copper.
Miss Jiang, by buying so many bad debts, aren't you afraid the Pei family won't be able to afford to pay you back?
I am buying them precisely because they cannot afford to pay. Bring all of the Pei family's external debts to be settled on the spot.
The Pei family's external debts total 21,000 taels. Now, 14,800 taels of those debt rights are in Madam's hand.
How much does that account for?
Exactly 70%.
In other words, most of the money the Pei family owes to outsiders has now become debt owed to Madam. And that's not all. First, let's calculate the 30,000 taels they owe me. There were no IOUs for the past 5 years. How do we collect this 30,000 taels? The restructuring agreement states very clearly that all the Jiang family dowry used by the second branch over the years is classified as a loan.
The second master signed and sealed it, which is equivalent to admitting himself that he owes Madam 30,000 taels.
The first thing Madam did was to turn the dowry they took from her into a legal debt. Yes, now look at the second ledger. What will the Pei family use to pay off the debt?
2 estates, 6 shops, and the manor of the second branch's eastern residence.
These are all collateral. Every time Pei Shinji borrowed money from me, he pledged a property to me.
If the second branch cannot pay it back, the estates, shops, and manor will belong to Madam.
The second thing Madam did was to turn the entire second branch into collateral. And there is a third thing, to shift the blame for the granary back to the ones who actually moved the grain. This document clearly states that the granary was actually operated by the Pei family's second branch. Lu Lanin signed the grain borrowing document. Pei Shinji stamped the grain release order, and Pei Qingyan pressed his thumbprint as the beneficiary.
When the Ministry of Revenue investigates further, it will prove that the person who sold the grain was not Madam.
The responsibility for the deficit of official grain will also fall back on the 3 of them. My dowry became a debt, the Pei family's properties became collateral, and the blame for the granary is no longer on my head. 70% of the external debt is also in Madam's hands. If the Pei family cannot pay it back, the entire second branch will have to be handed over to Madam. So, I was never saving the Pei family. I was waiting for them to owe so much that they couldn't pay it back.
Madam is now the Pei family's the biggest creditor.
Not the matriarch of the Pei family, but the creditor of the Pei family.
Mother, after you take all this back, will you take me away from the Pei family?
Mother wants to take you and establish a separate female-headed household.
What is a female-headed household?
From now on, you and Mother will have your own separate household registry. Your money, your marriage, and your future can no longer be decided by the Pei family.
And Father won't be able to give my things to Brother Qingyan anymore?
No.
Then I am willing to go with Mother.
Good. We will go to the capital prefecture office right now to submit the application. Madam, will the government really allow a mother and daughter to separate from the husband's family? The laws of Great Qing state 3 conditions. The husband's family embezzling the dowry, the husband endangering the wife's life, and the wife possessing independent property. We meet all 3 of these conditions.
Mother, if the government asks me if I want to leave, I will answer, yes, myself.
We have arrived at the capital prefecture office.
Jiang Zhaoyue has grounds for applying to establish a separate female-headed household with her daughter.
The Pei family embezzled my dowry of 30,000 taels. Pei Shinji shielded his nephew who harmed my daughter. After the incident at the granary, he wanted me to take the blame for the person who actually committed the crime.
The loan agreements, mortgage contracts, and complaint are all here. They are registered with the government. The evidence is sufficient.
What else is missing?
We also need to ask who the child wishes to go with. Pei Ning, do you wish to remain with the Pei family or follow your mother to establish a separate female-headed household?
Once I separate our household with Mother,
your father can no longer dispose of your property and marriage.
I am willing. When I fell into the water, Father chose Brother Qingyan. Now, I will make my own choice.
The application is officially accepted. The notification will be delivered to the Pei Manor today.
Jiang Zhaoyue has applied to separate from her husband with her daughter and to divide all properties under the mother and daughter's names.
She wants to take Ninger away.
And also separate all of her dowry, debt claims, and mortgaged properties. All of them are to be separated.
Her dowry was all used to replenish the granary. What property does she have left?
For that, you must ask Lord Pei what contracts he signed himself.
No, if she had nothing, she would never dare to split the household. Come with me to the accounts room to check the deeds. Why has her dowry from the past 5 years all become the debt of the second branch?
The notarized contract bears the second master's signature.
Why is 70% of our external debt also in Jiang Zhaoyue's hands? She has already bought up the promissory notes from 3 merchants.
The estates, shops, and the East Manor are all mortgaged to her? Yes.
If the Pei family cannot pay back the money, what will happen to the collateral in the end?
The East Manor will belong to Jiang Zhaoyue.
Jiang Zhaoyue. You turned your dowry from the past 5 years into debt and bought up 70% of the Pei family's external debt.
My husband finally understands.
2 estates, 6 shops, and the East Manor are all serving as collateral for your debt. Once the Pei family cannot pay back the money, even our ancestral home will belong to you.
My husband is mistaken again. What I want to take is not just an ancestral home, but the entire second branch.
You turned your dowry into debt and mortgaged the estates, shops, and manor all under your name. You have been scheming against me from the very beginning.
Every single contract was signed by you. It was you who took my money time and again to save Lu Laning and her son.
Without the account books and the seal, you won't be able to prove anything. Men, take away all of her account books.
These are the accounts of Madam's dowry. No one is allowed to touch them.
Since she married into the Pei family, her things belong to the Pei family.
You are seizing the account books because you want to renege on the debts you personally incurred.
I will let the capital prefecture know that all of these debts were forged by you.
Are you even going to deny your own signature?
Seal the accounts room, take the keys and the seal, and go invite mother, sister-in-law, and the clan elders.
Lady Jiang, how dare you plot to seize the Pei family's ancestral property?
When the Pei family took my 30,000 taels of dowry, why did no one call it a seizure?
Sister-in-law, we treated you as family, yet you want to take away our house.
You were the one who sold the official grain. Your son was the one who spent the money. Yet in the end, my demanding the debt becomes me robbing you.
She is already beyond cure.
Lock her up first.
Mother, why are they grabbing you?
Ninger, don't be afraid. Mother is just taking back her own things.
For the sake of money, your mother even wants to rob the Pei family's ancestral home.
You were the ones who took mother's money first.
Ninger has nothing to do with your debts. Give her back to me.
When you admit your mistake, is when you will see her, mother. Take Ningning away.
Mother, I want to be with mother.
Pei Shinji, how dare you threaten me with your own daughter?
Hand over the debt contracts. Withdraw your application for an independent female household, and I will let you see her.
When Ninger fell into the water, you used her to protect your nephew. Now you use her again to coerce your wife. Are you even fit to be a father?
Lock Madame Jiang in the backyard. Not a single person around her is allowed to remain.
You are detaining the madam and the young lady. This is against the law.
Once the capital prefecture rules that she plotted to seize her husband's property, she will be a criminal.
All the contracts bear the second master's signature. You cannot deny them.
With the accountant's testimony, we can prove she tricked her husband. Mr. Zhou, let's talk. Go to the capital prefecture tomorrow to testify. Say that all the loan contracts were signed by Shinji because Jiang Zhaoyue tricked him.
The contracts were personally reviewed by the second master and personally sealed by him.
At that time, I only wanted to save the Pei family. I had no idea she had set a trap.
To ask me to lie, I cannot do it.
If you don't do it, your wife and child outside the city won't survive.
Who tricked me into signing the loan contracts?
Jiang Zhaoyue. Who intentionally caused the grain deficit in the granary?
It was also Jiang Zhaoyue.
What was her purpose?
Using the granary to force the Pei family to mortgage their properties and plotting to seize her husband's ancestral estate.
Press your thumbprint. Now, come with me. Once we submit the petition to the capital prefecture and enter the court.
You must say exactly what you just said.
After I say it, release my wife and son.
As long as Jiang Zhaoyue pleads guilty, your family will naturally be safe.
Shinji, will the capital prefecture really believe us?
I have already snatched the original account books from her hands, with accountant Zhou's personal testimony on top of that. She won't have a leg to stand on.
Second master, we have arrived at the capital prefecture.
I wish to accuse my wife, Jiang Zhaoyue, of tricking her husband into signing contracts and plotting to seize her husband's ancestral estate.
Can you prove? I am the Pei family's
accountant. All the loan contracts were set up by Jiang Zhaoyue.
She also deliberately emptied the granary to force us to mortgage our family estate.
The court will convene in 3 days. Both parties must be present.
Let's return to the manor and have the clan force her to plead guilty first. The capital prefecture has already accepted my petition.
Before the court convenes, you have one last chance.
What chance?
Hand over the remaining dowry and all the debt contracts. Withdraw your application for an independent female household.
And admit your mistake to your husband. As long as you are obedient, the Pei family will still allow you to be the primary wife.
You snatched my daughter, stole my account books, and now you want me to hand over my dowry, just to thank you for letting me remain the primary wife?
Once a woman leaves her husband's family, where else can she go?
Sister-in-law, just admit your mistake, and the family can still live in harmony.
When you sold government grain, we were family. When you were about to go to prison, I was also family. Now that I want to collect the debt, you claim I am plotting to seize my husband's estate.
If you don't admit your mistake, you will never see Ninger again.
Ninger,
Hand over the debt contracts and withdraw the application for a separate household. Otherwise, Ninger will remain in my courtyard.
Mother, don't agree to it. They stole your money.
And only then did they take Ninger away. Do you think it's only Ninger? Even the accountant you trust most is willing to testify.
Say that the loan contract was signed by the second master because the madam tricked him, and that the deficit in the granary was also intentionally created by the madam.
what did they use to force you?
He is speaking the truth.
Bring out all of her account books.
You want to burn all the original accounts.
Once the account books are gone, who can prove that the Pei family owes you money?
There are also the contracts you signed with your own hand.
The contracts are also in the chest. After today, you will have nothing but your word. Your daughter is held hostage. Your maid has been driven away. The account books are burned, and the accountant has already turned against you.
When court opens in 3 days, how will you prove your case?
Once a woman leaves her husband's family, even if she has money, she is merely a fat sheep waiting to be slaughtered. What are you laughing at?
I am laughing because after all your busy efforts, what you burned were only the original accounts kept by the Pei family. The real contracts were never kept in the Pei household.
The real contracts are not in the Pei household. Where on earth are they?
For every contract, I kept 3 copies. One was sent to the capital prefecture, one is kept at the Chamber of Commerce, and the other was given to the creditor for safekeeping.
The loan and mortgage contracts owed by Pei Shinji have all been registered with the government office.
Jiang Zhaoyue tricked me into signing them. Those contracts cannot count.
Every single page has Lord Pei's signature, personal seal, and witness seal. Whether you were tricked should be judged by the court, not decided by Lord Pei burning the accounts.
But Accountant Zhou can prove she set a trap.
And how she tricked me into signing the contracts. Say that again.
Everything was a trap set by the madam.
Accountant Zhou, you handled the signing of the contracts, but you were not involved in transporting grain from the granary, nor did you see Lu Lanin selling the grain, much less where the money was spent. He is not a key witness at all. The person who actually knows who transported the grain has already arrived. 8,000 tons of official grain. Who ordered you to release it from the granary?
The first madam held an order stamped with the second master's seal and commanded me to release the grain.
Nonsense.
160 grain carts, each with a cart number, timestamp, and the receiver's signature. The order is also sealed and kept at the capital prefecture court. I dare not lie.
The grain was transported out to help the Pei family with cash flow.
Then make it clear. Where was the grain transported to?
8,000 tons of official grain was sold by Lu Lanin through an agency to border grain merchants.
I only borrowed the grain temporarily to do business.
How much silver did it sell for?
All 8,000 taels were sent to the Pei manor.
Who was the silver given to?
6,000 taels were given to Pei Qing'an to use, and the other 2,000 taels were used to cover the shop's debts.
Please have the person who actually spent the silver come out.
What does the silver my mother gave me have to do with me?
It is written right here. Pei Qing'an received 6,000 taels of proceeds from the granary. The signature is yours, and the thumbprint is also yours.
I only cared about taking the silver. I didn't ask where it came from.
You were the beneficiary when taking the money, but now that trouble has arisen, you claim to know nothing.
Cheng'an is young. He was merely following the arrangements of his elders.
Then read the loan records of the shops to him as well.
The silk shop borrowed 2,000 taels to transfer to Pei Qing'an. The pharmacy borrowed 1,800 taels to pay off Pei Qing'an's drinking debts. The cosmetic shop borrowed 2,200 taels to fund Pei Qing'an's banquets for the sons of influential nobles.
Uncle, You promised to give me all of these.
The shops borrowed money from me, and you signed as the guarantor with your own hand. Now, the signatures on the money and its whereabouts all match up.
This only proves that Cheng'en spent the money. It doesn't prove that Jiang Zhaoyue didn't deliberately frame my dowry.
Then let's talk about how this all started. Bring in the witness who saw Ninger fall into the water. On the day Miss Ning fell into the water, it was young Master Ching'an who pushed her from behind. After Miss Ning fell into the ice hole, young Master Ching'an even said that even if she died, no one would dare blame him.
How much money did Jiang Zhaoyue pay you?
Our testimony was filed with the capital prefecture long ago. After Ninger was pushed into the water, you forced me to say she slipped and fell on her own. You brought this confession yourself. But that is not the worst thing Pei Ching'an has done.
Half a month ago, Pei Ching'an sold the East Street silk shop under Jiang Zhaoyue's name.
Who gave you permission to sell my dowry?
I only remember the deed of sale for the silk shop bore Jiang Zhaoyue's seal.
But after verification by the Chamber of Commerce, it was found that this seal is a forgery.
You forged her seal.
Why did you never tell me?
Uncle, if I didn't have the money, I wouldn't have been able to enter the Imperial Academy. Haven't you always said that my future is the most important thing?
Forging a seal and privately selling a registered shop. If I choose to press charges, he will not only lose his eligibility for the recommendation exam, but he will also go to prison.
Sister-in-law, Ching'an cannot go to prison.
Whether he goes to prison or not is not for you to decide with your tears. Now, it's time for Pei Shinji to make a choice. The first path. Hand Pei Ching'an over to the capital prefecture, forging a seal and privately selling the shop. He will bear the consequences himself.
Uncle, please don't.
The second path. You assume all debts and responsibilities for him, and at the same time admit that all previous loan agreements, mortgage deeds, and grain release orders were signed by you voluntarily.
You had this all prepared. I didn't force you into this step.
Whether to hand over Pei Ching'an or not is entirely your choice.
Shinji, Ching'an is your elder brother's only bloodline. You promised the prince's manor that you would protect him for life.
Uncle, I can't go to prison. Save me just this once more. I promise I'll behave from now on.
When he pushed Ninger into the water, you protected him. When he squandered all of the Pei family's money, you protected him. Now that he has forged official deeds, are you still going to protect him?
Bring the assumption of liability agreement.
Pei Shinji confirms that all past loan agreements, mortgage deeds, and grain release warrants were signed voluntarily by himself. The debts owed by Pei Ching'an, the profits obtained from the granary, and the liability for forging the seal shall be jointly assumed by Pei Shinji.
Shinji, this liability is too heavy.
As long as he can stay out of prison, I can bear the cost of my future.
There is one last clause, using all your family property and official reputation as a guarantee.
If the second branch is unable to repay the debt, Pei Shinji shall assume it with all property and salary under his name.
You knew this was a trap, yet you still forced me to sign it.
I did not force you. Put down the brush, hand Pei Ching'an over, and you won't have to bear any of this.
I will never let my brother's only bloodline go to prison.
Lord Pei, once the official seal is stamped, it is equivalent to guaranteeing it with your reputation as an official.
Shinji, you cannot stamp your official seal.
Uncle, only you can save me.
Do you think you can take away the Pei family with just these deeds?
Whether I can or not will be decided in court in 3 days. See you at the Jingzhou prefecture in 3 days.
Today, we must have the governor of Jingzhou severely punish this wicked woman, Lady Jiang.
Old Zhou and the money house are both on our side. She cannot win.
She is merely bluffing.
Court is in session. Plaintiff and defendant, enter.
Jiang Zhaoyue, which set of fake account books do you plan to use to make your excuses?
The first piece of evidence is the confession, where you forced me to lie for the culprit on the day Ninger fell into the water.
Pei Shinji accuses his wife, Jiang Zhaoyue, of seizing her husband's property. Jiang Zhaoyue accuses the Pei family of embezzling her dowry and illegally selling official grain. Today, both cases will be tried together.
Your Honor, Jiang Zhaoyue has shown no respect for her husband's family and tricked me into signing a debt agreement. He also colluded with merchants, trying to seize the Pei family's fields and ancestral home.
Jiang Zhaoyue, do you plead guilty?
I do not, Your Honor. I ask that Pei Shinji state his so-called charges clearly, one by one.
He knew full well the Pei family was in desperate need of money and deliberately forced me to sign the agreement. Once the Pei family couldn't pay it back, he used the deed of release to seize our ancestral property.
Your Honor, husband and wife are one. The Jiang family treated marital affection as debt. This is clearly a deliberate attempt to harm her husband. The Pei family is of noble and honorable descent. Please, Your Honor, uphold the dignity of our clan.
This court judges based on evidence, not the reputation of the Pei family. Jiang Zhaoyue, he says you tricked him into signing the agreement. What do you have to say?
First, I ask Your Honor to investigate how much of my dowry the Pei family has spent.
When Jiang Zhaoyue married, her registered dowry at the government office was 48,000 taels. Over the past 5 years, the second branch of the Pei family has taken a total of 30,000 taels.
Has that 30,000 taels ever been returned?
Between husband and wife, there is no need to return it.
In other words, you admit the money was taken by the Pei family.
A wife's money is meant to support her husband's family.
Your Honor, he does not deny taking the money. He simply believes that once taken, it doesn't need to be repaid.
Summon Zhou Youfu, the Pei family's accountant. Where was the 30,000 taels of dowry spent?
Deficits in the estates, debts of the shops, the old lady's birthday banquet, as well as young Master Chang'an's drinking debts, gambling debts, and exam recommendation expenses.
You clearly said before that Jiang Zhaoyue deliberately falsified the accounts.
The second master used my wife and children to threaten me, so I committed perjury.
The 30,000 taels spent by the Pei family is not without proof. Pei Xinji later signed to confirm it, listing it all under the second branch. The loan agreement bears Pei Xinji's signature and personal seal,
as well as the witness seal of the clan elders.
Are this signature and seal yours?
Yes, but that was because he promised to save the Pei family. So I had no choice but to sign.
I used my own money to pay off your debts and asked you to acknowledge that you owed me. Does that count as forcing you?
First, it is confirmed that the Pei family has long misappropriated the Jiang family's dowry.
Second, we must investigate where the 8,000 tons of official grain went.
Who ordered you to release the grain? Lu Laning held an order stamped with Pei Xinji's seal. There were 160 grain carts, and every single one had a release record.
I only borrowed the grain temporarily to do business.
Official grain belongs to the imperial court. How could you borrow it for private use?
After the grain left the warehouse, it was not used for the Pei family. Instead, she sold it all.
Lu Laning sold the 8,000 tons of official grain to border grain merchants. She made 8,000 taels of silver in a single day. She gave 6,000 taels to Pei Chang'an.
I didn't know that money came from the official grain.
When you took the money, you wrote the words granary earnings with your own hand. Your name and handprint are right below them.
What about the remaining 2,000 taels?
It was used to cover the losses of 3 shops run by Lu Laning.
Is this private seal yours? Yes. Did you know that what was released was official grain?
He knew. When I discovered the deficit, he told me himself. Lu Laning only wanted to save up money for Pei Chang'an.
I only wanted to replenish the grain first, so my sister-in-law wouldn't be blamed.
Knowing of the crime and failing to report it, and even helping to cover it up, the one you protected was not your widowed sister-in-law, but a thief who stole and sold official grain.
Third, we must investigate why my daughter fell into the water.
What did you see with your own eyes?
Young Master Chang'an pushed Miss Ninger from behind. After Miss Ninger fell into the icy lake, he even forbade us from saving her.
They took Jiang Zhaoyue's money.
They are not lying. You were the one who pushed me in.
While our daughter was unconscious with a high fever, Pei Xinji forced me to withdraw the lawsuit. He even forced me to admit that Ninger had slipped and fallen into the water on her own.
Is this the confession you gave to Jiang Zhaoyue?
Chang'an is currently taking the Imperial Academy exam. Ninger has already been saved. There is no need to ruin his future.
Father, I almost died. Yet you only cared that Brother Chang'an might not be able to study.
Fourth, investigate what the Pei family used as collateral for these debts.
2 estates, 6 shops, the East Mansion, and all assets under Pei Xinji's name.
You signed all these deeds yourself.
Yes, but I didn't look at them carefully at the time.
Pei Xinji, you are a Hanlin Academy compiler. Are you trying to tell His Honor that you are illiterate?
I just trusted my wife.
You didn't trust me. You just felt my dowry belonged to you anyway. So, when you stamped it, you didn't care at all what you were signing away.
The handwriting on the deeds is clear, and the government records are complete. Claiming you didn't look cannot overturn the seal you stamped with your own hand. The embezzlement of the dowry is true. The illegal sale of government grain is true. Pei Chang'an's assault and Pei Xinji's coercion to withdraw the complaint are true. The mortgage deeds and liability agreements are all valid. Can the second branch of the Pei family repay the debt immediately?
The Pei family does not have that much cash right now.
Since you cannot repay, we shall proceed according to the mortgage deeds. Jiang Zhaoyue's dowry shall be completely separated from the Pei family's property. The second branch of the Pei family must repay all dowry debts and external debts. For the portion that cannot be repaid, the 2 manors, 6 shops, and the East Mansion will be seized to offset the debt.
The East Mansion is the ancestral home of the Pei family. You cannot give it to her.
The deed was signed by Pei Xinji, and the debt was incurred by the Pei family. It is not the court giving the mansion to Jiang Zhaoyue, but the Pei family itself pledging it to the creditor. Lu Lanin is suspected of illegally selling government grain, and is remanded for further investigation. Pei Qing'an is suspected of assault, taking bribe money, and forging seals, and will be investigated in the same case.
Shinji, save us.
Uncle, you said you wouldn't let me go to prison.
Pei Xinji knowingly covered up crimes, instigated perjury, and abused official seals. He is suspended immediately and handed over to the Ministry of Personnel for investigation. Take the execution documents and immediately take possession of the mortgaged properties.
Jiang, are you really going to take the Pei family's manners and ancestral home? You are just a woman who married into this family with a different surname. What right do you have to divide the Pei family's estate?
I am not dividing the Pei family's estate. I am only here to collect the debt the Pei family owes me.
The judgment has been passed. Whoever dares to obstruct the execution will be arrested as well.
You can't take it down. This is the face of the Pei family.
The East Mansion has already been mortgaged to Jiang Zhaoyue. Starting today, this place no longer belongs to the second branch of the Pei family.
Jiang Zhaoyue, must you really push things to such an extreme?
Pei Xinji, you were the one who personally mortgaged the mansion to me.
You did all of this simply because you blame me for neglecting you and Ning. As long as you cancel the debt, I am willing to take you and our daughter back.
You still think what I want is for you to turn back?
You are my wife, after all. If you leave me, who else can you rely on?
I rely on myself. This is the divorce decree just approved by the capital prefecture. Starting today, you and I are no longer husband and wife.
You really want a divorce? You seized the mansion and demanded the debt, even taking it to court. Wasn't it all just to force me to bow my head?
I took back my own money, not to wait for you to bow your head.
If you weren't jealous of sister-in-law, why would you target her at every turn?
You still think I am fighting Lu Lanin for you? Look closely. I don't want you anymore.
You are just angry that I neglected you in the past. As long as I treat you and Ninger well from now on, we can still have this family back.
On the day Ninger fell into the water, you forced me to take the blame for Pei Qing'an. From that day on, I no longer needed your kindness.
I just wanted to secure Qing'an's eligibility for the recommended exam.
So Ninger's life had to make way for him? It's not just a divorce. Ninger and I have also left the Pei family registry.
Approved by the capital prefecture, Jiang Zhaoyue has established a separate female-headed household with her daughter. Starting today, the mother and daughter are officially separated from the Pei family registry.
Ninger is my biological daughter, Jiang Zhaoyue. What right do you have to take her away?
The Pei family embezzled the Jiang family's dowry and endangered the mother's life. Jiang Zhaoyue has her own independent estate. She is legally allowed to take her daughter and establish a separate household.
She is too young. She doesn't know how to choose at all.
Then let her choose again in public.
When I fell into the water, you chose Pei Qing'an first. Now, I choose mother too.
If you go with her, you won't get any dowry from the Pei family.
The Pei family's dowry, I don't want a single penny of it. Mother will teach me to read and keep accounts. I can earn my own money in the future.
Once the female-headed household is established, Pei Ning can inherit all properties under Jiang Zhaoyue's name. Her marriage and assets will no longer be decided by Pei Xinji.
Even when my daughter marries, I have no right to make the decision. No right indeed.
You carry the blood of the Pei family. How can you just leave?
Grandmother never treated me as part of the Pei family before anyway.
I provided you with food and clothes, yet you follow your mother and betray the Pei family.
When I fell into the water, grandmother told me not to ruin brother Qing'an's future. Why didn't you ask me if I was in pain back then?
Ninger, say whatever you want to say.
In grandmother's eyes, brother Qing'an's future is more important than my life. Since that was the case, let him take care of you in your old age.
You unfilial girl.
I am not unfilial. I just don't want to use my own life to make you all happy anymore.
Ninger, do not speak to your grandmother like that.
The same goes for father. In the future, I won't need your charity for my prospects.
The granary case involving Lu Lanin and Pei Qing'an is not yet settled. The two of you will return to the office with us for further questioning.
Shinji, tell them quickly. You will take responsibility for the granary matter.
I have already signed the liability agreement. I will shoulder everything for you.
Since that was the case, the three of you must be questioned together to cross-examine.
Wait, Selling the grain was originally arranged by Shinji. Sister-in-law, what are you saying? The grain release warrant was stamped with your seal. You were also the one who ordered to cover the deficit. And Jiang Zhaoyue provided the silver.
It was clearly you who, to make money for Chang'an, sold the official grain without permission.
I am a mere widow. Without the consent of the head of the second branch, how would I dare touch official grain?
When making money, you said it was for your son's future. Now that we are to be punished, it suddenly becomes all Pei Shinji's idea.
He is the head of the second branch, so naturally he should take responsibility.
Chang'an, tell the officers. Did you and your mother take the silver?
I was young back then and did not understand those accounts.
You weren't too young when drinking and gambling at 17, yet now you claim to be a child when it's time to take responsibility.
It was Uncle who said he would arrange everything for me, and he was the one who made me sign those loan agreements and acknowledgments.
You were the one who begged me in tears to save you.
It wasn't as if I forced you to stamp your seal.
I paid off your gambling debts and pulled strings to broaden your horizons. I even used my official post and family property to save you.
That was what you promised my father. You owe my father. It is not that I owe you.
Chang'an is right. You always say you want to repay my brother. Now, repay him by taking full responsibility. The very people you sacrificed your wife and daughter to help are the first to push you forward when trouble strikes.
It is all because you are useless. If you hadn't kept protecting this mother and son, how could the Pei family have lost our residence?
Mother, when you forced Zhaoyue to withdraw the lawsuit back then, you agreed to it as well.
You are the head of the second branch. When trouble arises, of course you must take responsibility.
Everything I did was for the sake of the Pei family.
But every single time, you sacrificed Ninger and me first.
The official grain was entirely arranged by Pei Shinji.
I was only listening to my uncle.
Pei Shinji has already been suspended and awaits questioning at any time.
Zhaoyue, only you can help me now.
Only after losing them. Did you think of Ninger and me? But we don't need you anymore.
Mother, are we really going to live here from now on?
This is no longer the Pei family's second branch. It is our home. The East Manor is so large. Do you plan to sell it for silver, madam? No, I won't sell it. This manor used to trap women. From now on, I will use it to help women. Help them how? First, let's go look at the Buddhist hall where I was locked up. Whenever the women of the Pei family made a mistake, they would be locked up here to copy scriptures and repent.
Will they still lock women up here in the future?
No. How should we handle this Buddhist hall? Tear down the altar, smash the door locks, and open all the windows.
Miss Jiang, does the school have a name?
It is called Jiaoning Academy.
Mother, what do they teach here?
It teaches women how to read and do bookkeeping, and how to manage their own money and land.
Then I will be the first student.
And also the future master here. Starting today, no women will ever be locked up here again. This place will only teach them how to walk out on their own. Jiaoning Academy doesn't just teach reading. It also teaches you bookkeeping, shop management, and land deeds. We have no family or relatives. If we learn these things, can we really survive? If you can manage your own money, you can support yourself.
I will learn from mother. I will also earn my own future. Miss Jiang.
Something terrible has happened to the grain prices in the capital.
What happened?
3 major grain merchants in the capital went bankrupt at the same time. The grain shops have no grain to sell. Grain prices rose by 30% in a single day.
How much debt do they owe?
Over 80,000 taels. And there are over 300 workers who can't get their wages. And the small grain merchants can't get their payments either.
If all the grain shops close down, what will the common people do?
An official from the Ministry of Revenue's grain division has also arrived. He came here specifically to invite you, Miss Jiang, for this matter.
Miss Jiang, the Ministry of Revenue wants to ask for your help in clearing the debts of the 3 grain merchants.
The Ministry of Revenue has so many accountants. Why come to me?
When you took over the Pei family's businesses, you didn't close down the shops and granaries. The workers kept working as usual, and the small merchants also received their payments. The Ministry of Revenue wants to know how you managed to pursue the debts while keeping the businesses afloat.
I can't tell just by looking at a general ledger. Take me to the Ministry of Revenue. I want to see all the account books of the 3 grain merchants.
The creditors are all waiting to get paid. Shouldn't we immediately seize the shops and sell off the goods?
If the shops are seized, the workers will lose their jobs, and the common people won't be able to buy grain. In the end, the shops won't sell for a good price, and the creditors won't get their money either.
Mother, why didn't you sell off the Pei family's shops before?
Because only if the shops stay alive can they continue to make money. Repaying debts and clearing accounts isn't about plundering everything. It's about first protecting the people and businesses that can make money.
Miss Jiang, we have arrived at the Ministry of Revenue.
The 3 grain merchants owe 80,000 taels of silver. There is still grain in the granaries, and they also have land holdings under their names. The creditors are demanding immediate seizure, but the workers are blocking the doors, demanding their wages.
First, tell me 3 things. How much is owed to the workers in wages?
6,000 taels. How much is owed to the small grain merchants? 20,000 taels. Who holds the remaining debt? They are all loans from nobles and wealthy merchants.
Pay the workers' wages first, then repay the small grain merchants. The debts of the nobles and wealthy merchants will be repaid proportionally at the very end.
The nobles lent the most silver. Why repay them last?
Will the nobles starve to death if they get their silver a month late? But if the workers don't get their wages, their entire families will have nothing to eat. If the small grain merchants don't receive their payments, they will go bankrupt tomorrow as well. We cannot make ordinary people bear all the losses just to preserve the dignity of the nobles.
Now that the order of debt repayment is set, how should we handle the 3 grain shops?
The granaries cannot be sealed. The grain shops cannot be closed either. First, sell the idle land and estates under their names to pay off the most urgent debts.
What if selling the land is still not enough?
Let the grain shops continue to operate. Keep the daily revenue first for the workers' wages and purchasing stock. The remainder can then be distributed to the creditors.
By keeping the grain shops open, grain prices will not continue to rise.
As long as the shops survive, the debts can be paid off gradually.
We will try this method for 7 days. My lord, the 3 grain shops have reopened, the workers have received their wages, and the small grain merchants continue to supply grain. The grain prices in the capital have returned to normal. Your method indeed worked. However, the wives and concubines of the 3 grain merchants have come to complain. Their dowries were also taken by their husbands' families to pay off the debts. Miss Jiang, should these dowries be used to pay off debts?
They should not. A woman's dowry must be registered separately and kept separate from the husband's family's debts.
Husband and wife are one. If things are separated so clearly, won't it damage their affection?
The husband's family did not consult the wife when borrowing money, yet they demand the wife hand over her dowry when repaying the debt. This is not being one as husband and wife. This is using women to fill their financial holes.
Whoever borrowed the money should be the one to repay it. The husband's family cannot enjoy the wealth while the woman bears the debt.
This rule must also be written into the debt clearance regulations. Debts are to be repaid in order of urgency. We must not sacrifice the workers in small shops just to protect the interests of the nobility. A woman's dowry must be registered independently, and the husband's family may not appropriate it at will.
These 3 rules protect not just money, but also the livelihood of ordinary people.
There are many merchants in the capital, and there will be more bad debts in the future. The Ministry of Revenue plans to establish a temporary debt clearance office, but the debt clearance office still lacks someone who truly knows how to revive businesses. The Ministry of Revenue officially hires Jiang Zhaoyue to serve as the female accountant of the debt clearance office. She is authorized to review merchant accounts and verify debt contracts. The government will handle the disposal of properties, and your salary will be officially documented under your own name.
This is not a noble title obtained by relying on a husband.
This is your own position. The official document will only state female accountant Jiang Zhaoyue without referring to you as anyone's wife.
Mother, this is a future you have earned for yourself.
And it is a path that women can walk on their own. Congratulations, Master Jiang.